Hello, and welcome to Mind and Money Show, where we talk all things mindset, money management, and our entrepreneurial journey. Along the way, we're going to throw in some amazing guests for good measure. I'm Shane Hyland.
I'm Gareth Shears. This show is going to change your life and teach you skills that school never taught you.
Boom.
Hi, James. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Do you know what? I look at this setup and it reminds me of 2020 again. Being stuck in a room doing Zoom calls.
It takes you back, eh?
You're based in Norwich?
Yeah, so east of England. Yeah, just outside of Norwich. Yeah.
Shame we couldn't have got you down here for a meeting, but another day.
Another day.
Yeah, we did a lot of these in lockdown like this, actually.
Oh, wow.
Zoom versions of webinars, and now we did quite a few. It was nice to do some face-to-face ones when we did it, because it
was unusual.
It was unusual, actually.
Yeah.
Used to do face-to-face stuff, but yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we've always been a remote business, so lockdown didn't really affect us too much because our team remote, our clients all over the world, all over the UK. So we pretty much operated through Zoom anyway. So yeah, it didn't really affect us much. We were quite lucky in that regard. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because we actually, the January 2020, we sat down and had a meeting as directors and said, right, we're gonna change the way we run the business, in the fact that historically financial services, right, just to kind of bore everyone with the old-fashioned nature of our industry. And it is an industry, not a profession, sadly, still, because we're still seeing the salespeople. But the historical thing is, you go out and see kind of like, Mr. and Mrs. Jones up in the valleys, you drive up at 8 o'clock at night and in the rain, and you spend God knows how many hours on the road. Historically, that's how a lot of these kind of old-fashioned businesses were built. The old-fashioned kind of turn up to the house and sell, in a way. But we made a decision that as of January, we didn't know COVID was coming in 2020. That's going to stop. Clients either come to our offices, because we got a nice meeting room here, it's very interactive, or they have to do it via Zoom. And lo and behold, COVID kicked in. All clients have to do it. I mean, so we very, very rarely now go out and see clients.
Yeah, and very, very quickly accelerated into this sort of virtual world, which was sort of projected for about 10 years' time, and it accelerated us by a decade in terms of the way we work, and the tech wasn't really ready to cope with it. Zoom had loads of problems when they, in the beginning of lockdown, that they had to fix. It just wasn't ready to be used at that scale. So we were 10 years, about 10 years ahead of where they said we'd be with regards to virtual work.
I know we get onto a bit more detail, but just touching on that, James, because you deal with people all over the world. Does that aspect of it, i.e., the dealing with people in different parts of the world and all that, did it make it easier in terms of, I don't know, signing agreements, or, in the past, did you have to do paper-based agreements? And now from, March 2020 onwards, did it go to a DocuSign type of format, or did it change for you guys? Or were you there?
Yeah. It didn't change too much. Most of our stuff was fairly set up to be remote anyway. But I think what changed was there was a noticeable change in attitude. So certainly from like the big cities. So when we first started out, we used to pretend that we had a London office address, and we hired an address basically in London, because we'd go networking all over the country, but obviously quite a lot in London, to kind of hustling to get the business off the ground. And they'd be like, why Norwich? Why not Norwich? That's where I live. That's obviously where I live. Like, what do you mean? Why? And it was like looked down upon by a lot of people. Like, you're not in London, so like you can't be any good. And then people would say things like, I want my agency sort of just around the corner so I can go and visit when I need to, I can just pop in. And I was like, think of any agency, advertising, branding, accountancy firm. When was the last time you just popped in unannounced without arranging a meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, never. We're 90 minutes away on the train. If you want to meet us, we'll arrange a meeting and we'll meet. Like, it makes no difference. And people couldn't get their head around this idea of being virtual, not having one office, having a team. We've got team members in Manchester. We've got team members down in Brighton. Some of our marketing department is run from the Philippines. We're a global operation working from home essentially, and people just couldn't get their heads around it. But as soon as COVID happened and everyone was thrown and forced into that tonight, that conversation hasn't happened since, not once.
Yeah.
And no one is insisting that you have to meet in person before they'll sign a contract with you or decide to work with you. Everyone is now. So it's saved us a big headache because we are constantly having to battle this idea of being good but being remote. And now that's not an issue for us at all, and that never comes up in conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great
shift in people's perceptions.
Yeah, it's a great way you framed it actually, in the fact that when the person said, "What if I want to pop in?" Right, probably 99% of people are never just going to pop in, are they? I mean,
no.
Like we do, like, actually I was in a meeting earlier and someone popped their head into the meeting room from across the road who we do some kind of work with, that's quite rare. Do you know what I mean? But like say exactly that.
You can pop in if you want to buy a sofa or you're checking on a piece of furniture or blinds or something. But as you say, if you're dealing with something that is of that nature, as you say, you're going to have to plan for it in advance. You're not just going to say pop in.
And I think part of it, to be honest, put it down to people's insecurities, people's kind of, what's the word? They're just not convinced that you're necessarily any good, right? So what's the one thing, if I'm going to work with someone and I'm not convinced how good they're going to be, I need them to be nearby. So if there's an issue, I feel like they're there. And the whole COVID lockdown thing did happen to coincide as well with me launching my book, Investable Entrepreneur, which became a bestseller. And suddenly the perception of me and the perception of Robot Mascot was suddenly elevated to, okay, this is a serious business with some really interesting intellectual property and a really interesting approach. And that perhaps there was also a shift in people's mindset of kind of going, well, who are you? I don't know where you are. You're not just around the corner. Like, I don't necessarily trust you yet, to it's a very trusted agency. No matter where you are, I want to work with you because you've literally written the book on it. So perhaps there's a shift there that's not just through us being used to virtual working, but also from Robot Mascot's perspective, a shift in the way we're perceived more broadly by our target audience, because we've built the reputation of the business over that period of time as well. And therefore, I just want to work with the best. It doesn't matter they're remote or there's not an office around the corner. We've got the track record to suggest that it doesn't really matter anymore. So perhaps there's two things going on there.
No, I think that's kind of good, and I think people have become more receptive to working with people who are not within the local area now. But it's great for business, do you know what I mean? Because you can look everywhere now in reality.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we're adopting a time zone model. But our strategic advisor has kind of made this suggestion. We think it's a great approach. Is that we can pretty much operate anywhere in the EMEA time zone, Africa, Europe, Middle East, UK. We can work with anyone in that time zone pretty much normally. There's only a few hours different, and then we can expand into the Americas and we can set up a team on that time zone. And really that means a general manager and a sales team on that time zone, and the work can still happen as it does with the current team. But we can just have a sales operations set up in the Americas and then in the kind of Australian kind of time zone. And then you've got global coverage with 3 kind of sales squads in different time zones and a central operation for delivery. Perhaps some project management staff in each of those time zones. So that in our roadmap, that's kind of what we're working towards, is kind of conquering kind of Europe, Middle East, potentially parts of Africa, and then launching into the Americas, and then sort of more towards sort of Australasia, and having this time zone model. That being said, we still get clients in from Australia and the States. We just don't actively market there right now because we haven't got the setup to properly do it justice. And time zone does become a bit of an issue, but yeah, virtual working allows us to target the whole of basically Africa, Europe, the UK, and the Middle East without having to make any changes structurally to the business at all.
Just expands your opportunity from a geographical scale astronomically.
huge market now to target, which really helps us find the perfect clients that we want to work.
And the book is superb. Even the cover, because I've got it, and even noticing you guys, the amount of content, when you're saying you become trusted, that you give away for free. That's unlike many people. You go on and the amount of stuff that you can download and that from your websites and get. You're giving huge content away. I suppose that just emphasizes the trusted nature of you guys.
Yeah, it's a massively important part of running any consultancy business for sure is winning trust and having enough content out there. Something that I like to think is like if someone can't binge your content, if they can't spend all day binging your content and doing 7 hours worth of engagement with you haven't got enough. So there should be blog posts, videos, social media. Like you should be able to spend a whole day just watching stuff about your company, how you operate, the process you go through, the results you've had, all of this stuff. If there isn't a day's worth of content there, then there's not enough, and you're not going to gain people's trust. You will only ever get business through recommendation and referral, because these are people who already trust you, who've already had a result.
Absolutely.
Or they're transferring that trust and that faith onto someone else. But if it's a brand new, fresh client who's never heard of you before, you've just met them at a networking event, or they've just stumbled across your website, if they can't binge 7 hours worth of content, then you're never going to win their trust. So we identified that sort of early on, and just have spent and invested a lot in content. And I also believe like we're in a digital age where content is free, right? No, charging for content is charging for information is an old-fashioned, outdated business model as far as I'm concerned. You as an agency, you solve their problems. You can tell them how to do it themselves, and that should be free.
Yeah.
If they want you to do it, they then pay you, and you're there to do it for them because they don't want to do it or aren't able to do it themselves. But content, information is free, because if you're not going to give them that free content and the information on how to do it themselves, someone else will, and then you're never going to win them as a client. And the thing is to tell them how to do it themselves, and then they realize it's bloody hard, and then they come to you to help them and support them. They try it themselves, get it wrong, whatever it may be. They then come to you to support them because you're the expert. You're the people that have positioned yourself in a way to support and guide them through that process. So then anyone who's going to be able to do this for me, it will be you. It will be Robot Mascot. So that's very much our ethos.
There's so many, as you say there, when you Google things, so many right answers out there, but the thing is, for each individual person and company, it's knowing what right answer is appropriate for them, I suppose. So if you give them as much content as possible, they can get the right answer from you, and then it comes back to almost being lazy or being uncomfortable with progressing, and that's where your expertise or professionalism comes in.
Hi guys, a quick break from our episode, just to let you know that we have released our mortgage course for free for a limited period of time. There is so much false information out there at the moment that is creating panic, stress and worry for everyone. We all know how difficult it is when you're trying to get your first mortgage or that new deal. Click on the link in the description below and get started, and use our years of experience to help you through these troubled times.
That's it. So yeah, it's all about then having the system, the funnel, if you like. I don't like to use the word funnel because I think it dehumanizes.
It's a massively overused word, isn't it?
Yeah, and it turns everyone into numbers. But a system, a process to turn someone who's reading your content and sees the value you can add into someone that sees the value in you doing it for them, because it can take it from here to here. So yeah, I think that's the key. And that's certainly been the key to our success is loads of free content and then a really good system to convert people into a client that sees the value. And don't get me wrong, we know that our conversion rates, we know our numbers really, really well. And we know for every 60 leads we get, people downloading a copy of the book, like I give away the book for free. Like I give away more copies than I'll ever sell. All the blog content, the free templates, for every 60 to 70 people that download one of those, we'll get one client.
Nice.
We know the numbers, and we know that we can scale that up. The more people we can give stuff away to, the more clients we'll get. We're not talking, support 2 or 3 people with some free content and one of them will become a client. It has to be done on that. It's not right for every business, but it is for us. There's enough founders out there looking to raise investment that we can have a done for you premium option, and that everyone else can do it themselves and we'll support them for free. And that's very much part of our ethos, to be the friends and allies to founders. That's baked into the heart of Robot Mascot. That's what pushes out that free content with the friends and allies. If you don't need us, don't use us. Here's how to do it yourself. If you do need us, here's the value you'll get by doing so.
Yeah, no, it's good. So we like to kind of, one of the early things in the podcast to get into, because it's something that we're interested in kind of knowing, because I think people start from a different place than when they get into business. But so tell us about your journey from kind of, I guess, where it all began to where you kind of are today.
Yeah. So I guess, let me start at the first business that I ran. So I launched a business with my current co-founder and business partner, Nick. We both met in an agency. We launched a business called Craft Associates, which failed spectacularly. We both quit an agency. Well, actually, we both got made redundant from an agency and decided to start up our own, and didn't know the first thing about business. We designed a website what we thought looked good, and then we would sort of sat and waited for the phone to ring. Really, like every entrepreneur who probably first time entrepreneur, and just didn't have a clue really on how to create a business. So that failed. We went our separate ways, went into various different jobs, gained a bit more experience, and then Nick got made redundant from another agency again, victim of his own success. Managed to the main client, they did so well on the marketing and advertising campaign he was working on that client didn't need the agency anymore, which meant they stopped paying them, which meant they had no money, which meant he got made redundant. So he was a victim of his own success. And then he started Robot Mascot, and I joined him about 8 to 12 months later. I quit my job and came and joined him as co-founder and set us on our way. And we started life as a brand and marketing agency. That's our background. That's our core skill set is communication, and it was a brand communications agency. Loads of those around. You can throw a stone in any town, any city, you're bound to hit the window of a brand agency. But something we were doing is working with startups. We really enjoyed working with innovative thinkers, creative individuals. We call them pioneers, right? That's the name we give to our kind of audience, like these really innovative thinkers who are doing something different, challenging the status quo. So we started working with lots of startups on their startup branding, and that led us to doing some pitch decks for them. I need to go and pitch for some investment. Could you design the pitch deck? So we started out just designing some pitch decks, and they got great response. We started writing and designing some pitch decks eventually. And they're getting great results, great meetings with investors. They were doing really well. And some advisors of ours that also happened to be angel investors said, look, I think you've got something here. Like, this is massively needed. There's no one offering this level of support. Like, the stuff you produce compared to what we get in our inbox every day is above and beyond. And if you can package that up and turn that into a niche offering, I think you've got something interesting here. So we went away, we did our research, we realized there was indeed a problem. We could solve it really by coming at this from a marketing and brand communications perspective rather than a financial one. Because most advisors out there were ex-analysts, they were financial advisors, but there was no one helping them speak the language of investors. We really noticed that founders just couldn't communicate their idea in a way that made investors want to take action. And we knew that was our job as marketing and advertising experts, brand experts, to make that happen for selling products. And if we just treated shares as a product of the business you're trying to sell to a particular target audience called investors, we could package up a set of sales materials essentially to do that job. So that got us thinking about kind of beyond the pitch, what do they need to close the deal? Because we noticed that a lot of our clients were getting great meetings. Pitch was great, let's get a meeting, but not enough for our liking with closing the deal, we're getting the investment. So we looked into why that was, researched with investors, and essentially came to the conclusion there's three critical fundraising assets. There's the pitch, the financial projections, and the business plan that all do very different jobs. The pitch is to demonstrate to an investor you're highly resourceful, you're able to get people to buy into your vision, get them really excited about the concept. Once they're excited, they invite you in for a second and third meetings, kind of go into the detail, do the due diligence, and they want to look across the numbers and make sure you've got financial clarity, you understand how to create financial success in the business, you're financially literate. And then once they've understood that, they want to know the real detail. What's the implementation strategy? How are we actually going to create commercial success? What's your plan of getting me from A to B over the next, not just the short term, but the long term, so I can achieve a sensible and valuable exit out of this? And the way you articulate those things is the business plan. So if you have those three assets in place and you treat each one of them as a piece of sales collateral for selling in a deal, and that they're designed and produced in a way that makes the investor's job easy in terms of making a decision on whether or not they want to invest, you get a much higher success rate. So we just completely turned it on its head and said, these are marketing materials for selling shares. And how should the financials look to an investor to tick all their boxes and give them everything they need? What are the red flags? How do we make sure this makes their job easy to make a decision to move you on down the funnel to the next point where they make a decision on whether or not to invest in you? And the same with the business plan. So yeah, we ended up kind of niching into that and producing those types of services and packaged it up as our pitch ready package. And that became our flagship service very quickly, almost overnight. Launched that and completely transformed our business, grew massively, 300% in the first year, 200% the year after, like massive growth as a result of launching that service. We had true product market fit and haven't looked back. So we eventually wound down the branding and advertising side of things, which his partner's now actually starting to wind back up again, because it's our both of our passions, particularly his passion. So we're now exploring that again and seeing if we can get back going with everything we've learned by doing the investment readiness agency. So we've completely pivoted from branding agency to investment readiness agency over a period of about 18 months to 2 years through that journey. So it's been a really exciting one.
So even though it's going to be a hard journey and there's been transitions and all that, what gives you the motivation to do that all the time? What drives you?
Supporting founders, being able to change their lives. So the personal driver for me anyway, and it'll be similar for my co-founder Nick. Well, firstly, we want to be able to kind of one day look back and kind of say we were there. Like, it would be amazing to have like an Airbnb, Uber type name under our client base, and we were there. We helped them get their first round of funding. That's always been a driver, whether that's their first round of funding or whether that's their that we designed their first startup brand. When Robot Mascot started, it was all about working with these pioneers that we could look back and say we were there at the very beginning. We kind of were there in the early stages and part of that story. And then more broadly is that being that ethos of kind of being the guide, being the friend and allies for founders, and supporting them along their way. And I get a real kick out of seeing our founders develop through the process of working with us, from someone who kind of has an idea that wants to raise investment to kind of someone who really understands how to now go out and pitch that, how to talk about it in a way that's going to engage an investor. So we just want to see great ideas and innovations flourish ultimately. And personally, I just get really frustrated at seeing all of these incredible ideas fail because of poor communication, because so many great ideas with so much potential are just thrown on the rubbish heap because they can't communicate it. They can't get it out in a way that makes everyone else see the potential. And equally, there's loads of terrible ideas that raise lots of money. And you kind of think, how? And it's because they're great orators or they're great at pitching, got the plan in place, and it gives the investors the confidence. And then there's all these incredible ideas that just go nowhere. And that was the real frustration. Once we got kind of into the startup world and started having more and more startup clients, and we saw these great ideas kind of go nowhere, that we thought were going to be game changers, we wanted to do something about it. And that's kind of what drove us, really.
I'm interested in, I suppose you can't divulge much stuff of, someone that comes, obviously doesn't just rock up to your door, there's a meeting booked, with some ludicrous idea, and you think, that's never going to go, and all of a sudden it just grows wings and flourishes. Any ideas you can give without?
I'm trying to. I don't think there's many that I've thought are terrible ideas.
Unusual ideas, then.
Or unusual. Put me on the spot now. I'm trying to think of.
There's one I heard yesterday. Actually, I was watching Scrum 5, which is like it's basically a review of like the Welsh rugby and stuff like that down here, and they were chatting to one of the players on there who's just gone into the Welsh side, a young lad from the Dragons, and he pitched to he's I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to smash it. I found this thing, avocado spread, and they were like, yeah, that exists already. He was like, what? He was like, so that was this kind of thing. He was like, I didn't realize he hadn't heard of like the fact that you have mashed up avocado spread on toast. He was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a millionaire. Yeah. And they were all taking the mickey out of him then because of that. But it's quite funny. But I can imagine it.
Yeah, I think there's probably there's probably loads of examples like that then haven't become clients for perhaps good reason. And that's more okay, go and read this content, go and absorb it, and then they come to the conclusion that perhaps they're not quite ready to raise funding yet and they need to go away and do a bit more work on it. But we don't tend to get the people with the kind of I've just had an idea in the pub type. By the time they've gone through, read our content, come through our system where they kind of learn a bit more about what we do and where we go, they self-filter themselves out to kind of say, I need to go away and do this first. I need to do that first before I'm ready to even begin this journey. So we tend to talk to the people that have already got some level of traction or validation. They've already pretty much well defined their problem and their solution. They've got a decent level usually of traction, if not at least some validation in terms of research and recommendations and industry insiders that have said this is a really interesting concept and I'd certainly be supporting it, those type, and that gives you the confidence that, I honestly believe that no idea is a bad idea. Some ideas have been done before and perhaps people haven't done their research enough, as you mentioned, that they need to realize they're not as innovative as they think they are. But no idea is a bad idea, and it's not our job to judge the idea because some investors will see something in an idea that I won't. So no idea is a bad idea. It's just the way you can, as long as you position it in the right way to an investor, as long as you deliver them the information that you will find, and you might, some founders have to kiss more frogs than others to find their Prince Charming, if you like, but there will be investors out there that will see the potential in it. If you genuinely believe in the potential, if you've gone through this process of really understanding the financial, what you need to do to turn this into something that's financially successful, going to deliver returns, you have a clear implementation strategy on how you're going to make that happen, and you've done all the work to make it beyond the idea. If you've done all that work and you still believe this is a goer and it's worth your time, your effort, and your own sort of blood, sweat, and tears, then there'll be someone out there that you can convince through your pitch who will happily invest in it. A lot of the time, founders will go through that work and they'll realize it's not worth their time and effort. And if it's not worth their time and effort, it's not worth an investor's money.
Yeah,
you kind of have to do that work to reassure yourself it's worth 5-10 years of your life on this, and a lot of hard work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And if you come the end of it feel this is, I've done all this research, I understand the market, and I still think this is a goer, then there's an investor out there for you somewhere.
Yeah, that kind of leads me on to that. Do you think anyone can get funded then, in reality? It's quite a broad question, but
broad question, but technically yes, as long as you've gone through that process. So the answer is yes, as long as you can clearly define there's a need, a market need, proof points of this is the problem I'm solving, and that problem is big enough that enough people want to solve it.
Yeah,
here's the solution I'm providing, and this is the price point people are willing to pay, I'm able to make a profit at that price point, and also there's enough people willing to pay for that solution at this price point. And then here's some evidence of people who are either currently paying me for that solution at that price point, or here's some research I have to suggest that people would be willing to solve this problem at this price point. And then more widely, here's the kind of local and national, international kind of market opportunity.
Yeah.
In terms of, if we were to scale this up, are there enough people in the world to want to solve this problem at this price point with this solution for me to be able to make a sustainable business? As long as you have the answers yes to all of those questions, then yes, anyone can raise investment. It's where people kind of say, I've had this idea and I want to go raise funding for it, and they haven't proven those 4 things, then no, they probably can't. But if they were to go and find those proof points and be able to justify that their idea should exist and should become a profitable business, then yes, they can go and raise investment.
Do you think the time of something is relevant as well, James? Because, I don't know, let's say, for example, somebody pitches for cameras in 2019 for digital chats like this. It mightn't have been there. People mightn't have felt the need to do that. But all of a sudden, things happen in the world, and you kind of re-pitch again when there's more of a need. So what might not be pitchable or something that is required now doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst thing in the world, and it could be something that could be relevant at some stage in the future.
100%. So timing can be key. I guess the way you can overcome that is through a why now section, if you like, to your pitch and to your business plan, the current opportunity, whatever you want to call it. But here's the problem, here's the solution. And then the final part of that puzzle is, why is now the right time? And if you can answer that really well, then hopefully an investor will be able to see now is the right time. So an example of timing, though, we had one of our first ever clients was called, actually I won't say who. One of our first ever clients was a remote working space, and the concept was, there's a load of empty spaces. You'll recognize the concept, I'm sure. There's loads of empty spaces that are used during the day, restaurants and bars, that could do with a bit of extra revenue. And wouldn't it be great if there was an app where people could go and hire by the hour, or even go and use it for free, these kind of empty pubs, and then the pubs would make money on the teas and coffees and the drinks. And they could just pop along and they could be listed on this app, and these empty spaces could be used, and that would help with the remote working revolution that we're seeing. And there was at the time, that I can't remember what the terminology was used, but the target audience was kind of like this digital nomad. That was it. There was this digital nomad, this millennial generation that were working from anywhere. Cloud computing had meant it was possible for people to travel the world, work from anywhere, and this whole idea of virtual working. They never got their idea anywhere. It was too early. Fast forward to 2020, and we had 3 clients with a very similar concept, 2 of which raised funding.
Wow.
Timing, right?
Yeah.
Had someone invested in our client 3 years prior, they'd be sitting they'd be well established, they'd already be in the market, and they'd be in a perfect position to go and run with COVID. But no one saw COVID coming, and it wasn't until COVID hit and lockdown happened that investors suddenly went, here's a thing.
Yeah.
It can be, timing can be a really big part. So the more you can do to establish with an investor kind of what macro trends you're seeing in terms of the way markets are changing, the better chance you have of convincing them that they should invest in you right now, because X is going to happen in 18 months or 2 years. Or historically, we've seen this happen. So I'll give you another example of timing very quickly. There's a client we work with that does scorecard marketing. So it's like a quiz marketing tool. And they address the timing thing by looking historically at marketing trends and how marketing is generally led by the US presidential elections.
Yeah.
So when you track back kind of big presidential wins, I can't remember which presidents, they'll know this, but in their pitch, they were very much talking about how when President X won, it was because they were really good on the radio interviews. Radio was a new thing. It wasn't newspapers anymore, it was radio. And it was the one before best on radio that won. And then I think the next time was like TV became a thing. And I think it was Ronald Reagan who won, and he was like an ex-actor, if I'm right. I might be completely wrong on my history here, but he performed pretty well on TV. And the other one was sweating under the lights and didn't look presidential at all. They looked timid and they looked scared because they were in this scenario with a studio with lights and they weren't used to it. So Reagan won. Fast forward to now, who won? You had Obama won on social media. Social media became the big marketing tool. And then you had Donald Trump, who won on data and Cambridge Analytica and the scandal there. And now data marketing is the big thing. Now, you may or may not like Donald Trump, but the reason he got in power was because of his use of data. And now data is the next big thing. And they're now selling their data marketing product, quiz marketing, go and gather a load of data about your prospects and use it to sell to them.
Yeah.
They're using historical why nows to kind of say, history says that whatever the presidential election, whatever media wins the presidential election, is the media for the next decade. Data was this most recent one, and then they went and got their funding, and they've proven that why now issue in a compelling way that made investors see that there's a big potential here.
Yeah, it's quite the whole scorecard questionnaire style of marketing. It's interesting. Everyone's got, it's this brand new thing. It's actually technically been around for years. If you ever remember going to the supermarket and some person stopped and ask you some questions, and they'd ask you a load of questions. I'd never answer them. They'd ask you a load of questions about, where do you live, or what age group you're in, where do you live, what's your education level, what tea bags do you buy, and so on and so forth. And that's effectively what the scorecard, and then they'd sell that data to marketing, because they'd ask questions like, do you own a house? Well, they'd sell it then to an insurance company, try and sell them house insurance.
Yeah. And then that evolved into the club card, right? Where you had data on their purchases, and you'd be able to give them vouchers for people to upsell and increase their basket value. And then partner with other brands and sell them their products, Tesco Mobile, Tesco Insurance, all this stuff. So data's been around a long time, but what's useful, what's happening now is the visualization of data, the personalization of data, and the accessibility. Like club card cost millions, if not billions, to build. Now you can go. This client I'm talking about can go and build a piece of software, which you can now do your own version of that for £49 a month. That's the shift. Is like, we can use data, and now you as a sole trader can do it for 49 quid or 29 quid a month or something like that. As an entry level.
Yeah, and you have some data. You have some data of that person at the very outset before you even get to meet them.
That's it. So they're showing that the history there, and therefore what the future holds, and why now's the right time.
And Apple are trying to stop it all. Apple are trying to stop it all.
The investor needs to feel at the end, if this founder doesn't do it, someone else will. So, and they might be a couple of years behind. These founders are a couple of years ahead. Yeah. Curve. They're hitting it this just at the right time. It's going to be big in the next 18 months. That's perfect. We can get the development process out the way, and then we're really ready to hit market launch just as this is going to start to take off. And if you can kind of shape that narrative, you're in a really strong position.
We started these chats just before lockdown, I think, in kind of February 2020. During that time, all of a sudden, it was people stuck at home and locked in their own little bubble worlds, and during that time, there was a lot of chat about resilience and mental toughness and stuff like that. And am I right in saying that you guys said, are you all remote in the business? You're all in different pockets of the country?
Yeah, 100% remote.
So how do you guys deal with, there will always be, as a business owner, you're always going to have a bad day. How do you, if you're not there for each other, how do you deal with the type of having a bad day, or there to put a digital arm around one of the staff or a co-founder or something like that?
Yeah, so, firstly, we have weekly meetings to to get everyone aligned on kind of the direction and the week. I'm sure that happens whether you're remote or not, but we do those via Zoom. We have something called an awareness list, and this is kind of a thing where any member of the team can just pop something down on that awareness list or bring it up weekly meeting. So this is a frustration. This is something in the process. Like every time I work with a client or every time I try and do this with the marketing, this happens. And that's taking me, it should be a 5-minute job and it's taking me 30 minutes. Like just have an awareness list so everyone can bung that down as and when it happens. They can get it off their chest, put it on the awareness list, and then we can go through it and address them in those meetings and action it and make their lives better. And that, whether you're remote or not, that's a great practice for a business. And then it's constant, right? Like literally this morning, we had our meeting, and it was needing to be kind of reminded that myself and my co-founder are there. Like if you're struggling with something, if you're ready to just kind of throw something at a brick wall, just pick up the phone or send us a WhatsApp, and when we're free, we'll give you a call, and we'll just, you can just vent to us and then get your head straight. We can talk about what happens next and move on. So we put that stuff in place as much as possible. It's different. It's just a different way to manage, because you can't see it going on, and you have to rely on that person being open enough to tell you that they're struggling or tell you that and you can kind of pick up on it through the tone of the messages. When you get to know that person, you can kind of go, I think they're having a bad day, let me just give them a call. So you kind of get a second sense for it, but it is more challenging, and it takes a certain type of character, I think, to work as in a remote business. We tend to work with a lot of ex-freelancers. People are quite used to solitary working, and they've perhaps worked with us in a freelance capacity for a while, and then we bring them on board because there's a good cultural fit and they enjoy the work they do with us. So that tends to then be less of an issue, because they actually prefer to be on their own in their own little silo, because that's how they've always worked. Where someone transitions from a buzzy employee kind of environment with water cooler chat and kind of a sort of in-office jokes and all of that kind of culture that you see, probably struggle to adapt a little bit more, and perhaps it's not the right type of position for them. So you have to be kind of aware of that. And we're still learning, right? We're still growing our team and hiring different people from different backgrounds and with different experiences, and still trying to learn kind of who to hire and who not to hire, or what works, what doesn't work, the sorts of questions we should perhaps ask at interview to kind of figure out, is this really right for them? We're still figuring it out as well, if I'm honest. But yeah, we're learning as we go, and they're the sorts of things we're doing right now to try and keep everyone aligned and keep everyone on board.
And our main job day to day is financial planning, and I suppose as people would know, financial advising. And we've kind of used the line of the ability to do what you want when you want, while at the same time removing the fear of ever running out of money. Do you think that it seems to us, we've dealt with a lot of entrepreneurs that they know the cost of everything to running a business, down to how much paper clips cost. Sometimes they're not as good in their personal finances, and they see their business as that will help them in the future. Do you guys ever see that, or do you, is it solely from a business overview, or do you ever see them talking about the personal side of the money?
Yeah, I think we have. There's probably two different types of founders, and there's those that are starting more or less with nothing.
Yeah,
they're eating baked beans and ramen noodles, and that's the kind of typical image of a startup founder. They obviously tend to less be our clients. They tend to consume our content, be massive fans, recommend us to everyone, and we give them lots of free advice and tools and support, and they learn on the job. And so I guess we don't get to see that side. Our clients tend to be slightly more experienced. They've usually got 5 to 10 years corporate experience behind them at quite a senior level, and they've spotted an opportunity to kind of change that sector through the insights they've had working in this space, and now they've perhaps saved up a bit of startup budget and they've quit their job, and the last thing they want to do is go back to the corporate job with their tail between their legs saying it never worked out. So they want to bring on board the best advisors around them to sort of support them through that. So I can't comment on their personal finances, but I'm guessing they're managing them pretty well because they've built themselves up a startup budget. But they're very conscious on, I've got to spend this money, it's got to last this long, and I've got to get to the point where I raise funding. Otherwise it's game over. And then the other type, the other sort of main type of founder we tend to work with is, other than those that perhaps already raised a small amount of pre-seed and they're now going for their seed round, would be an ex or a multiple entrepreneur, an ex-entrepreneur who's either exited their business and now starting another one, or they already run a consultancy business and they've developed a piece of technology perhaps within that consultancy for their own use, and they've gone, this could be sold to literally everyone who does my job in the world, and I could spin this out as its own entity, turn it from a piece of software we've built that's a bit clunky into a software that can scale. So then they're using the profits of the consultancy they run to build the startup that they're starting. So they tend to be, I would imagine, pretty good. But then there's others that clearly, and I obviously can't name names, but there's others that clearly they're using family inheritance, like an advance on family inheritance. They've gone to the bank and mum and dad, even a later stage in life, and kind of parents have gone, well, this is going to be yours one day anyway. You might as well
have it now
to fulfill your dream. And they use that as a friends and family round, it's called, right? Before you go and raise money off an investor, often before you can raise money off an investor, it's not unusual for a founder to need to invest anything from sort of 20 to 80k into getting there. The initial proof of concept, the research, just paying themselves for the 6 months they're going to need to take out of their job to go and focus on this to kind of get it done, whatever it may be. 20 to 80k wouldn't be unusual. There's not many people that are perhaps in the position to kind of keep the mortgage on a roof over their head, and invest that kind of money into their startup. So, that's when friends and family round comes in, and it's kind of close friends, associates, ex-colleagues, parents, uncles, aunts, whoever, to try and invest sort of 10 grand here, 20 grand there, just to keep you going. And you end up selling kind of 5 to 10% of your company just to get off the ground and get that first kind of cash in the door to keep things going. So that sort of tends to be how it works. And then you go and get more professional investment from angel investors or venture capitalists that start investing 100, 200, 500, a million into your business.
Nice. Cool. So what's the future look like for Robot Mascot and yourself moving forward?
Wow, continuing to grow. We're continuing to support more and more founders. As I said, kind of really actioning this kind of time zone model. So scaling things up across Europe at the moment is a big focus. Working with more and more founders that need our support on that side. We've just launched something called Campaign, which is support for founders once they've got all their assets in place and they're ready to go and pitch to investors. How do you find them? How do they get in front of them? How should they pitch to them? How do they meet, seek, and convert investors, essentially? So it's leveraging our background again in brand and marketing, and kind of going, you've got the sales materials now to go and sell your shares. Yeah. What's the marketing strategy to go and get the investors in the funnel and start pitching to them and converting them into clients, essentially getting them to say yes. Yeah. I want to invest. So we've just launched a set of services and support around that. So we'll be looking to scale that up. And as I say, my business partner is now kind of relaunching our brand services and exploring that. So we'll be looking at more kind of startup brand services, again, nice. Communication from a different angle, and now looking at how we communicate these ideas to their audiences and potential employees to attract talent and just create a brand that everyone wants to sort of buy from, work for, and acquire. So that's sort of on the bubbling away in the background as well. So yeah, never stops, right? It never stops.
No, it never does.
You get to the point where you think, yeah, this is what I wanted to achieve, and then you're like, oh, but I could do this, I could do that. Like, so yeah, it never stops, the life of an entrepreneur. But
Well, sometimes you have to rein it in, though, don't you? That's the big thing.
yeah, it's being strategic about which ones the ideas you take forward and which ones you need to kill.
That's a hard thing, though. That is a very
something that I've learned over the years is killing an idea quickly. And you may have invested a lot of time and effort and put your heart and soul into it, but you need to the sooner you kill it off, the more brain power you have for the things that are really working. So not to be too emotionally attached to some of the things you've created.
No, exactly.
No, super. Well, cheers. Thanks for chatting, James. We'll stick all the links and stuff like that for people to download all of your stuff on the podcast and the YouTube channel and stuff like that. But best of luck for the future, and may the success continue for you.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyable conversation, actually. Really, really good. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, James. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe and remember to follow us on social media for more content like this.